Hey, it's James O'Keefe here. I'm at Turning Point USA. A lot of great people here. A lot of people want to become undercover journalists. I ran into this guy after my speech, a Mediaite reporter. What was his name, Caleb or something like that? And he just kept asking the same question over and over again. And I guess he's going to write an article. But we actually filmed the encounter. So he kept asking the same question over and over again, and I'm going to play for you the interview, which he probably won't show. So here it is.
Yeah, so I just wanted to...
Okay.
You mind if I record this?
Yeah.
Wanted to ask you about the recent controversy with the whole Washington Post
Yeah.
thing. Just like from your perspective, the response from obviously the media outlets and from like your inside perspective on the whole situation.
Yeah, I mean, we use a variety of aliases to get meetings with people. We've posed, as pimps, as child abusers, as victims of abuse, as telephone technicians. Undercover journalists have done this throughout the 20th century. We use the alias to gain trust and to get a meeting and film the interaction with the people. So like we released 2 videos on the Washington Post. I showed them today. I don't know if were you in the audience when you see the speech or I
came in about halfway through.
Okay. So Adam Entus and Dan Lamoth were on tape talking about how the reporting is they're frustrated with their colleagues because they're the people who are focused on fact-based reporting, and their opinion pages and their other colleagues are not basing that. So that's the type of stuff that we're looking to expose. When we get interrupted, like is the case with Louisiana, they just manufacture this absurd, they're assigning motives. But you could view it as much as you think it's denigrating to victims to pose as a victim. I mean, that's like saying it's denigrating to prostitutes to have me pose as a pimp. I use the alias to gain access to people, to get their trust, to get a meeting. And of course, the media can assign motives to me all they want, but they're not true. The work speaks for itself. What I do over the course of 10 years, every time, is gain access to someone to open up their deepest, darkest secrets. That's what we do. And that's the truth. And that's the truth that people don't want to hear because they hate us, but that's the truth.
So with the Alabama situation, you don't have any regrets about the way it went down? About your methods, or your operatives' method, and
I think that the media has been assigning a false motive. That's, you should ask the Washington Post. I asked for a correction. They just lied. They just lied. They said that my motive was something it was not.
What did they say your motive was?
Well, you tell me. I mean, they're making all these.
Well, what did you ask for the correction for?
Because they're assigning a false motivation.
Which was
with the intent to undermine victims or some such thing. That's absurd.
Well, you don't see how paying a woman to pretend to be a rape victim could undermine actual rape victims?
How is that prima facie the case? By using an alias as a pimp and by saying that I've abused children. And in Yonkers, New York, we got a teachers union to go off and on about how they're protecting people. By posing as a pimp and saying I have child prostitutes with the Acorn investigation, they were telling me to declassify them as dependents on the tax forms. By posing as a member of the gay community in Georgia and saying I was a member of the group Rain Bros, we got access to a CNN producer. We use a variety of aliases to gain access to people, to get them to trust us. If you don't understand that, you need to look up undercover in a dictionary. People have done a variety of crazy things. Woodward and Bernstein lied to their sources in All the President's Men. People use aliases to gain access to people in order to get them to open up. The media cannot abide us. They can't, it's unimaginable to them. It's unthinkable, unfathomable that there's anything wrong with them. So what are they going to do? They're going to assign a motive to me when a sting gets interrupted. For that, they should be ashamed of themselves and they should apologize. And I've asked them to, and they didn't want to print my comment. So, you can lecture me about journalism ethics. Why didn't they print what my actual intent and motivation was when I asked them to?
Which your intent was to...
I just told you what my intent was. It was to get a meeting, to gain access, and to build their trust.
To debunk the stories that had come out about the 14-year-old and the 16-year-old.
Absolutely not. You're doing the same thing. You're assigning a fake.
I don't see how you can logically.
Okay.
I just don't see how you can see how.
Who knows what they would have admitted? Maybe they would have admitted their journalistic bias. Maybe at the end of the meeting she would have talked about the Trump-Russia story. That's what our video showed. It showed Adam Entus saying that the Russia story, it was may not be a story. He called it a quote f***ing crapshoot. He said it was a quote f***ing black box. Okay, you didn't see the alias that we used to get that meeting. For all you know, we posed as a victim. You don't know that because the video speaks for itself. In the John Bonifield case, we posed as a member of a gay group. Does that mean that I'm undermining homosexuals or gay people? We pose as a variety of things to gain access to people. And I understand that you don't like this answer, but that is the truth. You may not like it because the media has fed you all this crap, but that's what the media does, man. They did it on the Trump-Russia story. They admitted that it's bull. In the New York Times case, we caught a reporter on tape saying that they made up a story about James Comey and they're not objective. Like, why aren't they talking about that? Because they're part of a trust, a cartel. And we are an existential threat, and now they have to make some type of lesson out of me. So in response, I'm going to make a lesson out of them. I will never apologize for doing the things that we do because it's necessary. Undercover work is absolutely necessary to expose how these people think and what they actually believe. And you can't evaluate the utility of the alias that you are using. You can't evaluate the ethicalness of the alias until you actually get to the bottom of what you're actually exposing. Mm-hmm. So you can't judge us for the alias that we use until you see what the person said on the other side. We've done 100 undercover investigations. You've only seen half of them actually published.
So in the case of Alabama, would you say you believed the women that came forward or you didn't believe them?
I'm not going to talk about a subject that I don't even have any subject matter expertise in. I haven't investigated any of that stuff. Are you asking about?
Well, I mean, you obviously you.
It wasn't
a journalist.
investigation.
Based on your own perspective, do you reading that Washington Post story?
Which one?
The initial ones that came out with the allegations.
Yeah, it's not. But yes, but it's not my subject. I mean, it's nothing.
So you do believe them?
Yes, but that's not what my investigation was about.
Right.
It wasn't about victims. It was about the bias in the media, and we were using the victim to we were using an alias to get a meeting. That's what we do, and I think that you want me to say something here. You have an hypothesis, and you're not hearing what I'm actually trying to tell you.
No, I'm just letting you get out. I mean, because obviously this has been a huge controversy. Yeah. I remember, like, obviously when it first happened, the trended on Twitter, right? It was number 1 trend.
Yeah. So were all the other videos I showed tonight. And you know what? None of the other media outlets wanted to talk about that. Why? Who is going to hold them accountable if not us? Who is going to hold the media accountable? Who is going to expose their lies and machinations? And you have to use the alias to get the meeting. Again, it's no more denigrating to victims than it was me posing as a child abuser. It's no, or as in the case of Bonifield with CNN, when we posed as Rain Bros.
Well, I think
why didn't anyone attack the alias?
I think in this case, the controversy was that there is a specific line of thinking where people believe that women that come forward are doing it for nefarious purposes.
But the story was, it was an alias. It was an alias used to gain, we use elaborate aliases, many of which you don't know. So why are you making the assumption that because I used an alias, the alias had something to do with what we're exposing? We were trying to gain access to another human being, to get them to open up to us. We were trying to get the person to open up to us, to tell us what they really think about the Washington Post and about what's going on in society. And it probably had nothing to do with Alabama. It would have had something to do with, I don't know, Jeff Bezos has control over our paper and tells me what to do, which is what one of our journalists actually got them to talk about Jeff. Maybe they would have said something like, yeah, you know, I can't believe this stuff we're doing about Russia. It's not real. That's what would have been the story. And that's what was the story in these other videos. And in the case of CNN, it actually, the White House actually used the stuff. The White House actually talked about what we exposed in that CNN video. But again, you can't evaluate the usefulness or the virtue of the alias that we're using until you evaluate what is actually being exposed. And that's a subjective determination. But the story was not about Alabama, it was about the bias in the media. And with all these things, when they get interrupted, the media can give me lectures about my motives all day long, but where is the virtue in them ascribing a false motivation to me? Where is the virtue in that? Why is that considered okay? For them to just make up a motivation, make up an intent, and not print my comment about what my intent actually was. Look at the career over the course of 10 years. Look at all the things that we have done. When I say that I want to start a brothel with child prostitutes, am I actually trying to do that? When I say that I'm a member of a Muslim Brotherhood front group, am I actually doing Muslim Brotherhood shenanigans? We use the alias as a means to get the meeting. But the media doesn't want to hear that because they have a narrative and they have an agenda. And that's the truth.
The last question, and obviously we're kind of beating this dead horse here, but
we are. I've answered the question 3 times, and you don't, because, you know, and listen, you seem like a very nice guy, but it seems like you want me to, you don't believe me, and I'm telling you this is the truth. And this is the problem. Mm-hmm. This is the problem with media. This is the problem with journalists. They have a hypothesis that's not concurrent with reality. I'm giving you the truth that's based in everything we've done over the last 10 years, and I think that journalists don't want to accept what I'm giving you. You don't want that to be the truth. So you keep asking the same question, and it's going to be the same answer. So go ahead, but you know the answer is the same.
Well, it's I mean, this one's a little different, but in terms of like if your story had actually come through in terms like the operative didn't get busted and the post never like discovered that it was a fake, and they printed the allegations. We weren't going to plant a fake story. That wasn't our intent. We were there. So if the reporter had they'd taken the bait and they ran it through their editors and it was up the chain of the command, we would have released a video. We would have released a video. We would have released a video, potentially, of a reporter admitting to their biases or talking about Russia or talking about their political agenda. Who knows what the reporter would have said? A lot of these meetings never get published, man. A lot of them you never see. You think that posing as a victim was hardcore? You should see a lot of the other aliases that we use that you don't see. We use hundreds of aliases, sophisticated and elaborate aliases, to build a trust with someone so that when they take us to get coffee, like, you know, a day after we meet, and they change the subject, they spill the secrets of what's going on behind closed doors. But that's the part you don't see. We never intended to plant a fake story. So we intended to film an interaction between two people that had built a trust together. And we use a variety of very sophisticated aliases. If you're suggesting that it's inherently unethical to pose as a victim, I would throw it right back at you and say, is it unethical to pose as a gay rainbow dude, or a Muslim Brotherhood front group, or a terrorist organization, or ISIS, or child prostitute peddler, or a victim of abuse in a teachers union? Where is the virtue? How do you evaluate the utility of the virtue without evaluating the consequence of what you're exposing? You just can't do that. But no, we never lie to our audience. We deceive our subjects in order to extract truths about them so that we can tell the truth to our audience. But so in this case, if they had taken the bait, you would have just told the Post, like, yo, this is all bullshit. We're gonna spike the story. We would release a video,
and they would have found out at that point.
Like with Adam Entus and Dan Lamothe, we released videos before anything happened. We would have released the video. We would have filmed the interaction and released the video like we've done in every other case. So you wouldn't have let the allegations get published, essentially. There were no allegations. The woman saying that she had the relationship with Roy Moore, that the Post that it was working its way through, the reporting process. If it had gotten to the point where it was ready to be published, would you have allowed that to be published, or would you have released the video? Never. We would release the video of an interaction, and there probably would have been a comment or a exposure of, who knows, maybe they would have done that, maybe they wouldn't have been biased, maybe they wouldn't have admitted their prejudices, maybe they wouldn't have gone into Jeff Bezos' control over the newspaper. I don't want to speculate. Who knows what would have happened? But in the case of, the best analogies I can draw is in the case of CNN, they went to a pool and they sat down, and he said, the CEO of CNN said in our internal meetings that they have control over what we do and they won't let us do journalism, okay? I could never have anticipated that moment. But undercover work, again, you need to look up undercover in the dictionary, because undercover work, you use an alias to gain access to someone so that they can spill the beans. That's what cops do. That's what the CIA does. That's what law enforcement, that's what narcotics detectives do. It's not denigrating to the person you're posing as to pose as that. You can't evaluate the virtue in it until you evaluate what it is that you are exposing. So to answer your question, there was never going to be a fake story, or we never deceive our audience. We never lie to the American people. But we do use deception. We always use deception as a means to gain access to powerful people. And nothing is more powerful than these media cartels. Nothing is more powerful than them. So we use the alias to gain access to the person. We pull them aside. We have an honest conversation about their standing in American media. They spill the beans. We film the interaction.
we release it before the masses. Not only are we not going to stop doing this, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to release another major expose that'll probably result in resignations. And maybe these media people get it through their thick heads about what our actual intent is. It was one of the most unethical things I have ever seen for the Washington Post not to print my comment about what my intent was. Where is the paragon of journalistic virtue in that? And maybe before you print your story, you should ask the Washington Post why they wouldn't publish what my intent was.
I'll do that.
Okay?